Hey everyone, a lot of people have been asking for my thoughts and opinions about IEM Katowice. Yes, I will be casting. I'm going there very soon, actually, in a couple of days from when I made this video, and it is starting in a couple of days as well. So, February 23rd, the Wednesday. So understandably, people want to know kind of the cool things going into the tournament, and also who I think is going to win, who I think is going to do well. So I decided to do a hopefully quick video. It always says quick, and then YouTubers never do it quick. But anyways, I'll be there casting as well as doing some interviews. This is also, I guess, my chance at announcing that I will be gone from my Twitch stream for a little over a week, but my YouTube, where you guys are watching this, as well as my casting YouTube, are going to be updated on the daily, so no changes there. But let's get into actually discussing IEM Katowice. So right off the bat, I want to make this clear because I've actually had some people who, they don't follow StarCraft 2 super close, and that's totally fair, ask why this is important. And to be very clear, it's important because it is the global championships. Everyone has been fighting for the last year, since last May, basically, is when our season started, till now, to try and make it here and then actually win this tournament. So everything's coming up to this. It used to be BlizzCon and the WCS Global Championship. Now the Global Championship happens at IEM Katowice. So hopefully you guys now understand that. It's the most important tournament of the year, so make sure to tune in, all that good stuff. But it also means that the competition level is going to be super high. So calling who's going to win such a tournament is obviously going to be a bit difficult. But right off the bat, I'll say that my favorite to win is Maru. I think that just makes sense. If you don't know why everyone thinks Maru is the best player in the world, fair enough. Again, not everyone pays super close attention to StarCraft, but even though Maru doesn't actually win literally everything in StarCraft 2, basically no one does. Even when Maru and Cero both dominated in 2018, they weren't winning literally everything, just a heck of a lot of things. But he does win a lot, faces off against the other best players of the world, and has contributed greatly to the advancement of Terran, which, sounds like I'm going to make a statue out of this guy, but it's kind of true. He's actually pushing the envelope for Terran. He's been doing it for years, I guess. This guy started off super young when he started playing professional StarCraft 2, and in the last 3 or 4 years, he's really come into, I guess, the place that everyone thought he was going to, which is perhaps #1 player in the world. But he has been denied a couple of different global championships, which is very interesting. A lot of the best players in the world leading up to an IEM Katowice, whether it was the global finals or not, didn't actually win it. So that's a trophy missing out of a couple of people's trophy cases, Maru included, but I still think that he is one of the favorites to win. But just wanted to get that out because that's almost always the first question people have. But let's actually start from, beginning to end, right? So the beginning of the tournament starts with the people who kind of barely got in. They just got in. So they get put into this round of 36 to play into the main event, which has people that are seated here, and you can see the TBD. That's the people who are going to be coming from the round of 36 if they win it. So it's a bracket, double elimination bracket, and you can see that 4 people qualify from it to fill in the 4 groups. That makes sense. But let's look, all right? Quick look here. You guys can look with your eyes. A lot of Protosses, a lot of Terrans, not that many Zergs, but it kind of reverses itself on the main round of 24 anyways, so it's a kind of well-balanced tournament. You do have people coming in from all over the world, so while this IEM Katowice used to be just like whoever made it through the qualifiers, whoever got invited, it really was all of the best players in the world. You could argue that it's a little less so, right? You have some regional representation that doesn't expect to do well. The Australians, Oceania, of course, but the Australians most of the time don't actually do particularly well, but they are going, and they are going to represent their region, I guess, that country. Probe, probably not going to do super hot, but you have other regions that might be almost like dark horse regions. So Taiwan and China, actually, they do have some strong competitors, not just in the round of 36, but also They're on a 24. So, everyone knows Haas, but keep a lookout for Nice and Cyan. I think they'll surprise you with how well they do. Kellezer as well. I think he needs a bit of a lucky bracket, but I think he can do very well, and that's what I've been hearing from some of the pros that I've been talking to, which you guys can see who I've been talking to on this YouTube, as well as my casting YouTube. So, Estrella coming in as the third North American representative, North America being, that is, Canada and the United States. Mexico belongs to the Latin America standings. Estrella, I think, also could do better than people expect, but I think his play style and experience in a lot of offline tournaments is a bit, it's suspect for an established, continued tournament. I think he might falter even sooner than we expect. I think he could he could go out really fast, and he could actually go super far, and it'd be like, oh, okay, to either one. I wouldn't be surprised. Europe, the land of, I guess, really usually solid players who, you know what to expect from them. Spirit being the most solid. That is good for, established tournaments, but don't know if he's necessarily going to get that far. He's a very good mechanical player, but he tends to falter in the larger tournaments. A Laser and Skillus actually have some unique play styles, so they could surprise, and I think a Laser is just generally good enough, has performed in big tournaments, international competition as well, that to say that he is one of the 4 players to make it out, I think is actually not necessarily a safe call, but perhaps he is my, riskier choice. I hesitate to call it risky. Most people look for the South Koreans to win, as they always have in StarCraft 2, and it's not. It's still, a good bet, actually, especially with the list of players we have here. So some of them probably aren't going to do that well, like Percival and Ryung. Their play is just not, up to. I don't think it's up to the standard that Hero's getting back to, or Beyond has already gotten back to. DRG and Ragnarok also, I think, of a little more of the established tournament runs and a lot of experience. Percival's young. Ryung is kind of in a not actually retired, but just, not full on 12, 16 hour a day type practice mode. But yeah, I do think that Hero's going to do really well. He seems to have fixed most of his bad calls since he got back from the military. He's back to where he was, maybe not exactly where he was 2 or 3 years ago, but he's almost back there. All of the things that he doesn't necessarily make sense for other Protoss to do, but when he does it, you go, okay, yeah, I guess Hero kind of makes that work. Fair enough. Creator, always, a little forgotten about, I suppose, in the history of Korean Protosses, but he is solid. Beyond's going to be a fan favorite. I don't think I need to go over why he could make it through, but is he guaranteed? I don't think so. And then the Zergs, I would say, are a bit up in the air. Armani was probably a strong contender, but he has not accepted to go, which is very understandable. We still live in very uncertain times. But that's my general overview of the round of 36. At the end of the day, who do I think is going to make it through? I am going to pick Hero, Beyond, Laser, and DRG. Those are my 4 picks, but as I said, there's a couple others that if they made it through, I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Let's move on to the main event then. So everyone gets put into these groups. I believe it is randomized, and then they have to face what is truly the biggest and baddest of their regions and of the world. So looking at the overall player list, from, again, the kind of smaller regions, you might say, well, they're smaller regions, so are we scared of them? And in this case, yes. Latin America, having Special coming through there. Special has always been a potential contender, even for top 4 of a global finals. He did make a top 4 BlizzCon a few years ago. Time is just always on the up and up. Very happy to hear that Time and Sign, both, by the way, actually able to attend. Fingers crossed, of course, because it's just... there's a lot of things that can go wrong, to be honest. But anywho, Zound comes in from the combined standings, kind of slipped in here. And I think people kind of choose him as maybe an easy dark horse. Does that make sense? It just is it's a very acceptable choice for someone who's not supposed to do that well, but people pin a lot of hopes on because he has been one of the new faces of the Korean scene that is kind of legitimately new too. A lot of the new players of the Korean scene are people who went to military and came back. But no, Zounds has been around for a couple of years. When we talk about new in StarCraft, we're like, are you a 11-year-old pro gamer or a 4-year-old? Anywho, I don't actually pin any true hopes on Zound, but I can understand why people do. Looking at the overall player list, the player, like I said, who I think is going to win is Maru. The top 4 contenders for a possible victory, I believe, is Maru, Raynor, Serral, and Zest, actually. So that doesn't really correlate with the standings here. It does maybe a little bit, but as you notice, I didn't mention Trap. It's because Trap has not been performing very well recently. So it's very questionable. We'll get into the detailed groups in a little bit, but those are my 4 picks to safely bet on. I think Rotterdam was saying that he thinks Clem's finally going to win it, but I think there is a couple of players who have only reached their height of their StarCraft play, or I suppose they could continue reaching new highs, right? But there's a couple of players who only came into the conversation for top 8, top 4 of the world during the COVID era. So we're going back to an offline event, which 90% of these players have been offline events. I actually can't think of anyone who hasn't been. But it's still a bit different, right? There are players who straight up, they've been pro gamers for 10 years. Some of them still don't do particularly well offline. They always feel a little off. The desk is different. They lost their keyboard. They couldn't sleep very well. And then there's players who do really well in offline events. They get energized by the crowd. They love the social aspect of talking to the other pro gamers and hanging out with friends and just being in a different place other than their home, right? So Clem, he went to 2020 Katowice, and he was kind of on the watch list, like, oh, he's a young upstart. He's very promising. Didn't do well. It was, at the end of the day, we could say that he had a disappointing run. And maybe it was because it was offline and he was kind of still getting used to not just offline tournaments, but the expectation of him at offline tournaments. You know what I mean? So we'll see how he does here. Most of the other names here, however, you're not really going to be discussing their offline performances. Like I said, some of them probably do feel affected by it, yes, but most of these guys are tried, and for the last decade, actually, they're quite practiced. Some of my personal favorites to do better than expected are going to be Showtime and Scarlet. Scarlet, fan favorite, of course. I don't think I have to convince you guys to cheer for her, but she did do very well in the last season finals of 2021, and I think it's one of those things where Scarlet kind of matches the players she's up against, if that makes sense. So if she's in a really difficult group, she'll outperform. She'll do better than expected. If she's in kind of a weaker group and you think she's going to make it through, she underperforms. That's at least what it feels like. But I think she could do very well. Showtime's just one of my big favorite players personally, but he also, unfortunately, can't seem to break past a certain barrier when it comes to global competition. In 2020, he did make the round of 12, however, which I think is pretty darn good. He got a bit smacked by Innovation when he did get to the round of 12, but still, I think he could do better than people expect. So let's move on to the groups, actually. Group A, Rogue, Cure, Solar, Neeb, Dream, and To Be Determined. I am going to go ahead and just say I do believe that Rogue, Cure, and Solar will be the 3 to make it out. Neeb stopped playing StarCraft for at least a month back in like November, December, I think was what I was told, and started to play again. But, we'll see how a big break actually contributes to his play. It just also makes him a real question mark. Like, he has not been playing in tournaments. So, but I even if he was, I would still say that Neeb's not exactly super dependable. He's dependable up until, like, he is consistent, I suppose, as far as his results. Fair enough, but it's just, I would say Neeb would make 4th, like barely, couldn't make it. But right now, wouldn't be surprising to see him just totally bomb out of the group. And I do think It might be Cure Rogues. You know, these three could actually just kind of change it up entirely. I don't know who's going to be 1, 2, 3. Rogue could be on or off. Solar could do the thing where he looks unbeatable in groups and then gets stomped later on in the tournament. Like, who knows? Group B is quite cool. Cyril and Dark being in that group. Time, special Showtime, and again, TBD. I think Showtime said he thought he was going to place second or third in the group. He's actually feeling positive about it. He's a very realistic guy. But Team Liquid did an interview, and you can go read his words. So I don't get anything wrong. Special has cool builds, but still struggles in international competition. His season finals were never as impressive as people hoped they would be. Time is actually of the non-Koreans, I guess, and not Cyril. I mean, there's only one Korean here, actually. It's Dark. Anyways, Time might be the big non-Korean / non-top 4 of the world player to actually get top 3 here. Yeah, that was a great way to put it. Moving on, Group C, Trap, Zest, Here Marine, Bunny, and Lambo. I do think that Trap is going to get top 3, but I think he's going to get third. Zest is going to get first, and then I was saying that it actually might be the TBD player. Maybe Beyond gets put in here, something like that, right? I think they might get second. Here Marine could. I do believe that. But Trap, at the very least, his PvT seems to be still okay. His PvP seems atrocious. Yeah. And I know people are going to be watching out for Lambo, another fan favorite, of course, but he'd have to perform very well. He's coming in he's coming in only because Max Pax forfeited his spot. So he would have been coming in the round of 36. Thus, expectations would be lower. But we'll see. I don't want to count Lambo out at all. I haven't talked about Dream, but I don't know if Dream or Bunny actually can beat out the other players in their group. I'm sure someone's going to be molding at that, but moving on. Group D, kind of considered by most of the community to be the true group of death. D for death. Maru, Clem, Raynor, Scarlet, and Zaun. It's a lot of interesting players. You have Raynor coming off of a bit of a slump, but that's exactly what he did last year, and he ended up winning Katowice 2021. So I'm sure he's hoping that the stars are aligning in such a way once again. You have Clem also coming off a bit of a back of a slump, also coming from, again, kind of the big power up from the COVID era to finally go back to offline. So we'll see how he does with that. But he is online. He is back up from his slump, I suppose. He's dominating the Open Cups pretty well. And Maru is probably going to make it first. I'm just going to say that. Maru's going to make it out first. Might clobber Clem on the way, but as far as the TVZs, I'm pretty positive that Maru's going to win both. And then Scarlet, I already kind of went over, just that I think she could surprise us and make it in third, maybe over Clem or over Raynor. But yeah, she'd have to have another kind of not quite miracle run, just like she did for season finals winter. And then Zaun, I also kind of went over. It's not a terrible thing to say that he could surprise us. He's got a couple of unique builds, and he has gotten much farther in top-tier competitions, such as the Super Tournament, than people really expected. So I shouldn't count him out here, but I kind of do, I guess. And then again, someone from TBD could make it to the top 3. So I think that kind of covered it, right? Most of the players in kind of the top 3 positions right now, I do expect to stay there. I don't know if it's done by their standings, but it probably is. So that just makes sense. You know, the more points they accumulated across the year tend to mean they won more tournaments, thus they entered more tournaments, got farther in more tournaments, and are rewarded by being one of the favorites in IEM Katowice. It makes sense. I do think that the finals is also going to be a Terran versus Protoss finals. I'm thinking Maru versus Zest. There has always been a Protoss in the finals of IEM Katowice when it's an international competition. The only time that it wasn't was when Koreans were actually locked out of competition. And it was like a Pult versus Zerg finals, like Pult Hydra or something, because they were representing North America at the time. But that's a history lesson right there. point is, especially thanks to Zest, there's been a lot of Protosses in the finals. So I think Zest will get truly, at this point, one more chance to win a humongous tournament before he gets sent off to military. I think that sums it up. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to ask in the comments down below, and I will try to answer them. And let me know who you think is going to win the tournament. Who do you think is going to be in top 4? And most of all, I hope to see you guys watching this tournament starting in, again, a couple of days from the release of this video. It's gonna be fun. I think, you know, everyone's gonna be really excited about the return to offline. There's gonna be a crowd for the last 3 days, the playoffs, and that's just always going to be so much more hype than online. Let's be honest. The online stuff has had a couple of cool games. Actually, last year's Katowice online was, all things considered, game-wise, absolutely sick. But offline's always a little bit more special. And if you are going to IEM Katowice, feel free to say hi or ask for autographs or pictures if the players and casters, you know, don't look busy. We're all pretty open to that. But yeah, I'm very excited for this. And I will be doing a couple more streams before I head off, but this video is probably going to come out the day of my last stream. But no worries for the YouTube crowd. Daily uploads here and on my casting channel. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you at Katowice.